Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, Scott. What's up?
Nothing much. How are you doing? Were you able to read the article?
Not mu- I'm good. I'm good. I haven't read the article yet that you recommended me to read.
Okay. But mhm.
But I looked at it, and yes, actually, I heard the audio, and I understood a little bit of that. They
Mhm.
speak a little faster, a little fast,
Yeah.
and
But it is only 3 minutes this time. Shorter.
yeah, yeah, but I heard it. I think twice,
Hmm.
but yes, I think I need to study more to understand all the things in
So
that
did
dialogue.
you learn anything about the United States, about agriculture, tea?
Okay, when I heard that dialogue, that audio, I could tell that you guys have discovered a tea plant,
Yeah.
and they got so excited about that. But that's all.
Yeah. So Yalpan, it's a tea plant that's native to the southeastern United States, and it was more popular in colonial times. And today it's been forgotten. So there's been a revival effort. Some people to have native plants and drinks and foods that were used here in colonial times, and this is one of them. You might find interesting. So, did you have any specific topic that you wanted to go over today together?
Yeah, I'd like to read with you this text,
Great.
and we
So
can discuss it later.
Great. Mr. George needs money.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to read the paragraph for me
Yeah,
in English?
I'm gonna read in English. Let's go.
Okay,
Mr.
great.
George needs money. One fine day, Mr. George went to his friend, Mr. Carter, to ask for a favor. Can I borrow $1,000 from you, my friend? Mr. George asked. Sure, you can. You know you are one of my friends, Mr. Carter replied. Mr. George's face lit up upon hearing his friend's response. He had been trying to borrow money from other colleagues to pay for his daughter's hospitalization. I know from the look on your face that you are facing a big problem, Mr. Carter added. I wanted to help a good friend and ease his trouble. Money is just a piece of paper used to buy and pay for things. Friendship is greater and more important, he further stated. I thank God I have a friend like you, Carter, Mr. George uttered. So thankful that he sh- so thankful that he shed a tear.
Great.
Oh, this is a beautiful text, right?
Yeah, I just don't think most Americans would do it.
You know?
I don't think in America it's you could find somebody, but it's very rare to find an American that would say yes culturally, because they wouldn't say. An American would say, "I can loan it to you," right? Because if he says borrow, like borrow is like emprestado, but borrow sometimes people mean it like a gift. So if you say, "Can I borrow?" people will say, "What do you mean by borrow?" So in this case, if he were American, I think he would say, "Sure, if you are borrowing it and this is a loan." So, but yeah, I think some people might do it if they're nice. I just think Americans are more particular about money.
But
And
when you mean, for example, a loan, do you guys, for example, do Americans usually add taxes in the
So we have interest, right?
interest?
Which would be the what's the word for that in Portuguese? It's on the loan.
Juros?
So interest. Interesse. Oh no, seria
It's like juros to add money.
yeah.
Something.
But-
For example, when we invest money, we
so
want it to be bigger.
Yeah, juros sobre empréstimo.
Yeah, exactly.
So if it's a person, no. Like usually they don't. But if it's a bank, yes, obviously. But no, the friend will do it. However, like I said, when you say, "Can I borrow?" sometimes people mean this like a gift, and sometimes they mean it like a loan. So be careful with this phrase in English because you need to be very specific about how you will borrow this money.
I see. Yeah, I usually hear that word, that verb to borrow, when I'm watching a TV show, when people are at school. So, can I borrow a pencil?
Yeah. So
In
the
that
thing,
context, people will give it back or not?
sometimes, because they might say like, "Can I borrow your sandwich?" And then sometimes people will say, "You mean give because you're not borrowing it." So officially, you would say borrow is emprestar, but in colloquial English, people will use it as emprestar and dar. So that's why people will say, "Are you borrowing it or am I giving it to you?" Like, estou emprestando mesmo ou estou dando? Because people use it both ways. So, but technically, it's like emprestar and dar. So people will come out and say, "What is it really that you want?" And if he says like, "Oh, like a loan, I will pay you back," then this is more realistic. But if he says, "Can I borrow $1,000? Like, give it to me," the person will say no. So,
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's like the TV show Everybody Hates Chris, when a thug stopped Chris, on the street. Let me hold $1. No,
Yeah.
he doesn't want to hold the $1. Right?
Can I borrow it? Can I hold it? Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes the language can be tricky, right?
Yeah. So, but technically, like officially, it should be like borrow is emprestar. But in the everyday language, people use it like give, even though that's not the official definition. So that's why I just said you can use this, but you could say like,
But for example, I am lending you money, for example.
yeah,
And you said, "Oh, can I borrow $10, for example?"
yeah,
So you may imply, for example, that I'm giving it to you, but can I, charge you afterwards? So, where's my $10?
yeah. So whenever this happens with an English speaker, you need to always say like, "If you pay me back," every time.
Oh, that's good to know.
So you should say that every time. Like, "Can I borrow it?" And then people will say, "If you pay me back," like, or "You owe me." And many times people will say no because there's no legal contract, and $1,000 is a lot of money, and I don't trust you. That's a common response. So I think like this is a very like Brazilian idea, because what would happen in the American version is they would say, "Oh, Mr. George said, instead of me lending you money, why don't you get a job and make $1,000?" I think an American would write that,
But even if a friend of yours are having a problem, I know
It depends. Sometimes, like if you are a good friend, if you are a close friend, they will say yes. But here it needs to say, like, Mr. George went to his friend Mr. Carter, who was like a brother to him, and they had been friends for 30 years, and his child was dying, which is like a daughter's hospitalization. So we have that part. And they do say he's a good friend, but he could be any friend. Like, if it were just some like one of my friends, they will still say no. Like it has to be like, you are a close, like an American friend, because American people don't trust you very easily with money. So I think it's a good story, but I think also it's interesting because to me, it sounds culturally like a Brazilian wrote it.
Yeah, that website is owned by a Brazilian guy.
Yeah. So this story, I mean, it makes sense. The English is fine, but I feel like a Brazilian message because if an American wrote it, I guarantee you it would be different. It would be a different lesson. It would be like, and then he got a job, and after his job.
Oh, yeah. That's funny because especially because in the TV show When Bart Hates Chris, Chris's father always said that you have to get a job.
Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. Like if Chris's dad, he was like, it would be, and then Rochelle and Chris, what's his name? Chris's dad.
Julius.
So then Rochelle and Julius told Chris to get 2 jobs so that he could go on vacation. And Chris learned how to work hard. that would be the American version, you know?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's great. That's why I love that text because I'm learning about the American culture.
Yeah. So
and you could tell that text was wrote by a Brazilian guy.
Yeah.
Because you read it, and right after you said, "Oh, it's not from the United States."
Yeah. You could say it was written. Yeah. Well, just because I lived in Brazil and I lived in the United States, I can compare, and I just think it feels very Brazilian. But the story and the English is appropriate, so there's nothing wrong with the story, and the vocabulary is good. But it just sounds very Brazilian. Friendship is greater because it's like because Brazilian culture is all about people and like loving people and God and friends. And the United States is also about God and work and money and work.